We hear a lot about entrepreneurship, economic empowerment, and the importance of the effective presence of Sudanese women in these spaces. For us to truly see successes being achieved on the ground, it's important to have both moral and professional support, as they increase the competency, capability, and self-confidence of Sudanese women for them to overcome many challenges, whether they're from the society or the work environment. My name is Hadil Osman, and I will be with you in the At an Afternoon Coffee podcast. We will get to know a successful Sudanese personality in every coffee sitting. She will tell us about how she was able to, after the conflict began in Sudan, to recover, continue her work, and make her mark in a new market, country, and reality. Hi, Nawar.
Hello, Hadil. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Can you please tell us about yourself, introduce yourself?
Okay, so I'm Nawar Kamal, owner, designer, and founder of NK Jewelry. My brand goes back to, I don't even know, 2009, 2014. Mm-hmm. I really don't know when the kickstart was because it started off as a hobby and then it turned into a business literally overnight. Mm-hmm. I studied business, graduated 2014 from University of Medical Sciences and Technology in Khartoum. Mm-hmm. And after the conflict started in Sudan, I settled in Cairo.
Beautiful. So you said that you studied business, and was this like your first work creating this brand? Was this the first thing you did, or were you working in another environment?
I actually have multiple passions, let's say. Mm-hmm. So one thing that I did right after I graduated was teaching. Mm. I used to teach kids, and I used to teach also in different institutes English in Sudan. Mm. It was really interesting to me because it was a passion that I only discovered after I graduated. Okay. I also did supply chain. I was a supply chain coordinator in a big firm in Sudan after I graduated. I only did that for 6 months. Mm-hmm. And then, but ever since I studied business, I entered university, I knew that jewelry was my passion and I knew I was going to continue jewelry making. Mm-hmm. So I was just exploring, but then I went back to jewelry design.
And is that what you currently do in Egypt?
Exactly. That's what I currently do and what I'll always be doing.
That's so beautiful. I can feel the passion as you're speaking. And I'm guessing like we know that the moment you decide to start a project or a business and to go through that experience, it definitely has like a special kind of taste to it. So can you describe what that period was like for you? You said it varies because it started as a hobby.
Yes, it definitely does vary a lot. So basically my story goes back to 2009 when I visited my uncle in Ghana. Mm-hmm. And my aunt decided to give me a short course. I was enrolled in a course for jewelry design because Ghana is also known for the land of beads. Yes. And the land of gold. So these people wear beads everywhere, even to their funerals. Uh-huh. Yeah, it's quite interesting actually. So I learned the art of jewelry making, or let's say bead making first. Mm-hmm. And then when I came back to Sudan, it was a hobby because I was very young back then. I didn't even enter university yet. Okay. So I started by just selling to close family and friends, and then different, bazaars and different events in Khartoum. Mm-hmm. And then it extended to Kenya and Ghana, a few events here and there. And then that was the kickstart.
Beautiful. As a working woman or a woman who was working back in Sudan when you first started, what were the biggest psychological and, let's say, social challenges you had to face? And was that from your immediate environment or just generally from the overall community?
Of course, being an entrepreneur in Sudan, especially back in 2010 or 2000, and right after I graduated is when I started taking it seriously. So let's say 2014, mm-hmm. It wasn't very easy. It wasn't, a piece of cake at all. There's so many different challenges. If you're talking socially, economically, the situation of the country back then wasn't very easy. Even with like daily things, selling your pieces, marketing them, the price points, things were difficult and they only got more difficult with time right before the conflict. But to me, it was very rewarding because I would say I was one of the very few brands that started introducing bead making in Sudan. And also it was very beautiful to me to kind of bring together and merge the Ghanaian jewelry art and the Sudanese one as well, because we do have a lot of stones in Sudan and what we call trade beads, which are very old and precious stones that they get from West Africa mainly. So we do have these in Sudan. We have also authentic stones in Sudan. So it was beautiful to explore that market and to kind of dive into it and create pieces that were kind of unique and special in a way. But it was also not the easiest because I did face a lot of resistance from my clients or my target market itself. In Sudan, we're known for wearing gold jewelry.
Yes.
We're very classic with our jewelry. So introducing something new like stones, it wasn't the easiest thing because a lot of people would be like, why are you selling it for this price? It's just a stone. It's not even gold. They would compare all the time. But overall, it's still very rewarding. Also, one of the challenges I would say were, daily small things that happened, like visiting the local market in Sudan as a woman. I always had to make sure I take my brother, a friend, a male figure, whoever it was, because it's constantly, you face a lot of harassments.
Bargaining is not easy.
Bargaining is not easy at all. You're getting ripped off. But after a while, I genuinely started building very strong relations with these people, which is something that I also learned throughout my jewelry design period, that, networking, and you have to network with everybody in order to get your name out there.
Beautiful. And how were you able to convince your upcoming or future clients that they should consider beadwork or just wearing beads aside from like the traditional gold? How was that for you?
So when I'm working, every single piece of jewelry technically tells a story, and I have to build a story around the jewelry because I genuinely make what I feel and what's a reflection of my personal taste and what I would wear, which is usually statement jewelry pieces. So I guess they just loved my work. And also, when you're marketing something and you're telling a story behind it, and it's not just a commercial piece, it's more than that, people will fall in love with it eventually.
They'll be convinced to buy it.
Exactly.
And you talked about having some challenges with the market, or at least the bead sellers, or the sellers generally in the local markets in Sudan. Did you face anything from the overall community, aside from the clients? Like, was there anything that kind of you can remember now about convincing people that, I'm a businesswoman and I'm young and I have an idea and I want to enter the market with this different idea?
Of course, you would hear things here and there, even if it's like close family members, because the norm in Sudan is to graduate and have a job,
Full-time job, yeah.
Exactly. My close family was very supportive, speaking of my mom and my siblings. But I did hear a lot of comments from people around me or in the community itself that this is not something that is, rewarding after a while. You need to have something that is more stable, like
sustainable
and stable, like a job. So I guess that's it. But in general, I honestly felt nothing but support.
That's very, very special, actually. Yes. Since we're talking about challenges, and you have to know that they're a part of the journey towards that success that you have in mind. And of course, many lessons come along the way. Can you tell us about the difficulties you faced in your business and how you were able to overcome them, like setting it up, marketing it? You were talking about creating that story. How was that like?
Setting up the business itself, it wasn't... I wouldn't say it was that difficult because merging the business from a hobby or, merging it with what I already knew and I already learned in terms of like jewelry making skills and my business background as a business or marketing graduate, it wasn't that difficult, but having that business become sustainable in Sudan was very challenging. For example, in terms of pricing, every day you would wake up with the dollar price changing, you know? So setting a specific price or a stable price every day was definitely very challenging. Also, targeting your niche market wasn't also very easy because they're constantly changing. When you're talking about something that is like a jewelry business that is built on passion, let's say, you don't really have a specific design pattern that you follow. So I'm constantly changing. I'm constantly introducing new concepts. So for me also, I was exploring myself and I was discovering my journey while having this business. So the challenge kind of came from within more than the community and whoever was around. And to me, it was more of keeping the business, making people fall in love with it than making money. But now I came to realize that no, in order for you to have a sustainable business, you have to be making very good money.
Yes, you have to like start on the business side, whether it's like, you know, knowing your demographic and targeting the boring stuff.
Exactly, the very boring stuff.
So did you have a role model back then, someone who inspired you to keep going, to not stop, regardless of how tough it is in Sudan to start up a business?
Okay, so surprisingly, my role model is actually a very famous Egyptian jewelry designer, Fahmi.
Nice.
I love her work so much, and I'm very inspired by her story actually, because I came to learn that she I think came from a family of authentic jewelers, but she made her way through. So she used to make pieces by hand ever since she was a young girl in Al Hussein and the local places in Egypt. Whenever I feel like I'm fed up or it's becoming too much or maybe I should just get a job, I would open her page and see where she has reached. So she's always been my role model and inspiration for sure.
Beautiful. It's nice to have like an inspiration, be someone in the business and have such a rich history behind them.
Exactly.
So what is the best piece of advice you remember being given, and how does it impact the woman that's with us here today?
So the best piece of advice that follows me up to this day was actually given to me by my mom. When I first graduated, and a lot of people would, not mock my work, but they would belittle it, let's say, and not understand the concept behind it. So she would tell me that if you believe in something so much, you have to make other people believe in it too.
Okay.
And I think this is what actually keeps me going, and this is the core concept of my work. And this is why I have to tell the story behind each and every piece, because convincing other people comes from you being convinced as well. And if you have a strong story to tell, always, it will be very easy to market your product, your service, to get whatever you want to get through to other people.
Solid advice. Then again, like moms know best. And that's
and we only learn that when we grow older.
Yeah. Yeah, probably at the time you just heard it, and then after that you processed it, and it's a part of who you are and what your brand is.
100%.
Now, on the contrary, what is the worst piece of advice you were given, and did you choose to follow it, or did you just completely disregard it?
Oh my God, this would not be one piece of advice.
Tell us all of them.
I think people just constantly tell you that if you're not making enough money out of your business, then it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Right before the conflict in Sudan, right before we left Sudan, or actually just a year before that, let's say, I reached a point where I thought to myself that if I'm not making a certain amount of money each month, that I should stop my business.
Okay.
And I think this was because solely from, pressure from people outside, that success is linked to certain figures, certain numbers, but they forget the long journey before that. Because each and every person who has money, who has a successful business, they had to go through ups and downs, and many of them.
Yeah.
So I think people in general telling you that if you're not reaching your goals by now, maybe you should get a job. It's more stable, it's more rewarding, it's more sustainable. And thank God I didn't listen to any of that, because I wouldn't have been who I am right now, and I would have been miserable for sure if I took that advice into consideration.
Yeah, sometimes what we hear from people, It's coming from their own experiences, of course, and it's also coming from the environment that we were in. The financial situation doesn't help, but I'm really glad that you stuck to it, because this is also inspiring to anyone who's listening that, yeah, it's sometimes you have to get the advice that you don't want to hear, and then you process it and you choose what you want to take from it.
Exactly. And for me, I'm the kind of person who won't be able to succeed in something that they're not in love with. I have to love and have passion for the thing that I'm doing in order to even continue and wake up every day doing it. Otherwise, I'm probably just, be, I don't know, very unmotivated.
Yeah, I can imagine. You were talking about, and this is something that stuck out to me, the fact that behind every piece there's a story. So how do you develop that? Or how do you come up with these stories? Or is it just in the moment as you're sketching?
So basically, my biggest inspiration would be the diversity in Sudan. This is something, it's basically a file that never ends. You just keep adding paper and paper to it. I sketch based on our culture, our heritage, the beauty of Sudan, the colors, the different tribes in Sudan, even different languages. I see someone speaking to someone and I get inspired. For example, if they're telling a story about a place in Sudan or something that reminds them of something in Sudan. That's basically my main inspiration. But other than that, if I'm not creating a piece that is Sudan focused, it would be nature. If I'm traveling somewhere, I'm also very much moved by different cultures. I like to ask a lot of questions when I'm traveling. I like to get to know people and what they do on a daily if I'm exploring a new culture. So I would say my biggest inspiration is definitely culture, different cultures, nature, whatever it is. But my design process in general goes from getting inspired by something, and this can sometimes take months, weeks, and sometimes it can literally be on the dot. So it really depends. For example, there's a collection that I sketched more than a year ago and it still hasn't seen the light, but I'm currently working on it because it's literally my heart poured into this collection because it's so inspired, very much inspired by Sudan, and it reminds me of so many things. So this is something that would never end. It's a whole life that we had there. It's a whole journey. It's a whole inspiration. It's a whole lot of memories linked to a certain place that I would love to keep creating pieces inspired by it.
That is inspiring within itself. And I like that you touched on the diversity of Sudan, because a lot of what we are processing every day and dealing with has to deal with our identity and how different it is from one city to the next, not even from one state to the next. So it's nice that you look at where you come from and you try to translate that in your designs. Of course, the context for us has changed since the outbreak of the conflict, of the war in Sudan. And the experience of a new country changes every day, because we're living in a different lifestyle, or we're adjusting to a different type of life. But I think we can all agree that Sudanese women are strong, they're very resilient, and they thrive everywhere they set foot. However, I want to hear from you. What challenges have you faced upon arriving in Egypt, and how are you able to overcome them, if any?
Okay, basically, the last time I came to Egypt before 2023 was 2018, and I honestly was not feeling it.
Okay.
It wasn't the right place for me because I think I didn't give it the right chance. But right now, I don't think there's any other place I'd rather live other than Egypt, because it reminds me so much of Sudan. It has so much culture. It holds so much meaning within just, walking down the street, getting to know the people, talking to them, exploring different places in the city, whatever it is. For me I think I'm quite blessed for moving to Cairo instead of anywhere else, even though it was completely unplanned. But it really worked out for the best because I'm so inspired here. And things have been so much easier here for me than anywhere else I would have lived in. Because I did try to explore other countries as well first, but it wasn't that easy. So I think if anything, I'm the kind of person who likes to look at the bright side, and there's so many bright sides to living here. Business-wise, meeting the people, getting a little bit of a piece of home to some extent, let's say. So I love it, honestly. I wouldn't change that for maybe a year or two, let's say.
That's great. So now when we look back at your journey coming from Sudan, how was that like? I know it's a bit hard to reflect on these things, but of course, I'm curious to know what happened. When did you leave Sudan? How did you enter Egypt? Because I'm sure this is also a part of your story now that you're based here.
I was actually lucky enough. I didn't witness the war in Sudan.
Okay.
I left to Dubai 4 years before the war. And 2 months later, I came to Egypt.
Okay.
So I didn't witness any of it, but my family was there, which was a nightmare. Like for me, at so many points, I was actually hoping I would be in Sudan and helping them out instead of witnessing everything from the outside. It was very, very difficult on me. You know, planning things, trying to get them out, not even knowing if they would make it alive the next day.
Yeah.
Because where we lived in Sudan was the heart of where the war started. And the roads were terrible. Getting them out of there, it was just very, very, very devastating, you know? And I was in Dubai all by myself.
Okay.
So it wasn't very easy, but alhamdulillah, things are so much better now.
They worked out. So they came here and then you followed them?
Yes, exactly. I came here 2 months later.
And although you were not in Sudan, your business was still running in Sudan up until the war.
Yeah, I had actually built a new studio 2 years before the conflict broke off. And I was so in love with it. I had people working with me. We were like a beautiful NK family. I had so many dreams, so many plans of things to be done. But I mean, God's plan is always the best of plans. And I just don't like to think of all the things that I lost in Sudan. It makes me really sad because so many of the things actually are very sentimental pieces. Like the first necklace I ever made in the course in Ghana, 2009. Some pieces that they don't even make anymore, like some old trade beads, pieces that I got from Kenya that were originally Somali beads, for example. I don't even know where I would get them from now.
Yeah.
But, you know, alhamdulillah, there's always hope, let's say.
Always try to look at the bright side at least.
Exactly.
And so how was the experience of running a business from a different country? Since you had your studio based in Khartoum, I'm assuming, and then you were in Dubai. How was that like? Yes, you had a team, but I would like to know the inner workings of that.
Okay, so basically I spent all of 2022 traveling back and forth between Sudan and so many different countries. At that time, I had someone who was very close to me, Yasmin. We were working together. She was handling my studio. And the year before that, I had Shema, one of my very close friends. We were working together as well. It was great because also a year before the war broke off was challenging to me to kind of let go and let other people handle and take over to some extent, because I'm a control freak when it comes to my work. But now actually is when I'm working from afar, because all my pieces and my work and my operations are in Dubai. They're not in Egypt. I only have a few pieces here that I sell to, you know, NK family in Egypt. I like to call them that rather than customers. And it's good because now with technology, things are so much easier. You just manage everything online. It's like working from home. And it's actually very nice. I have a lot of time for myself.
Yes.
Let's say.
It flows.
It flows, yeah.
And so what is your experience running the business now that you're based here? Like you said, things are being made and everything operates essentially from Dubai. If you can give us more details on how that's like for you.
Okay, so basically when it comes to beadwork, I was actually lucky enough when I left Sudan to Dubai before the war, I left because I had an event in Dubai. So I took a bunch of things with me for the event, and they were actually the things that lasted, and I was able to sell and buy new pieces from the income that I made from that money, from these pieces. So after that, one of the things that is quite devastating right now is I can't go back to beadwork. I think I'm traumatized forever. So I've tried so many times to go back to beadwork. I created one collection which was inspired by Afghanistan. It's called Lapis. So many of the pieces I got from the global village in Dubai, the Afghani village. This was the only collection that I was able to make by hand. But other than that, I depend on my suppliers and factories manufacturing things for me. Which is good because I feel like with NK, it grew in such a beautiful way that it doesn't solely depend on Nawar now. It depends on the suppliers, my connections with other people, even collaborating with other designers. So the work has been flowing in a very healthy dynamic, let's say. But it does get very challenging sometimes because if I don't have the pieces right in front of me and I'm not inspecting each and every one of them, I still have to trust other people to do that for me. But I mean, you know, building a brand and becoming a big brand or emerging into like an international brand, which is
And scaling up, basically.
scaling up is something that I aim to do. So I have to learn how to trust other people,
Yes.
which has been happening this past year.
That's good. I can imagine that's a bit of a challenge, but as long as the work is going well, then it works. So essentially, you did not set up your business in Egypt. You set it up in the UAE.
Exactly.
How was the process like? What kind of things that you have to do? I'm talking about like paperwork, just the idea of it. Since you're selling online, I'm sure it's a bit of a different experience, but how was that like to hire the team to get things properly done in a country like that, in a big market like that?
Oh, Dubai is definitely, the UAE in general is a huge market. It's very challenging because there's huge competition. The market is somewhat saturated.
Yeah.
But it was good because last year I actually got stuck in Dubai for 9 months. I was supposed to travel for a week and come back.
Wow.
But that's when the Egyptians decided that there's going to be a visa for Sudanese citizens. So it was hard for me to come back to Egypt. So I was stuck there for 9 months. In these 9 months, I was actually able to do all of the paperwork and set up the business in UAE. It was very easy, to be very honest. It's something that takes less than 10 minutes to get your paperwork ready. If you have the money, you just pay, you get your business license. And what I did was I partnered with a logistics and shipping company. So you put all your items with them. Whenever you're getting a shipment from outside, they inbound it in their warehouse. They do all the logistics for you. And then people place the order online. The order goes automatically to them and they ship out to wherever. The only challenge that's been facing me is actually Egypt because the customs are insane. So what I have to do now is make sure that I have enough stock in Egypt to sell to the people who would like to purchase in Egypt itself. But the work in Dubai or in the UAE is very easy. It's a piece of cake. And through the website,
It's easy
it
to ship
cannot be easier.
internationally and
Exactly.
everything.
Yeah.
Nice.
This is also one of the things that I know the war has so many. It changed our lives completely. It's devastated us. It took everything away. But at the same time, there's always opportunities. When you move from one place to another, you just have to keep an open eye and an open mind and look out for opportunities, you know, and just grasp on them before they're gone.
This is a solid advice as well. So what drives you to keep going and thriving? What is behind this motivation? I feel like you're running a business that's growing in a very healthy way and you're really changing how things were done before, possibly because of this now international exposure and how you're here and the business is in Dubai and your customers are all over the world. So what pushes you? What's that drive? Where is it coming from actually?
You know, I always get asked this question from my friends because I think everyone who knows me very well knows how much I'm passionate about NK and how I wouldn't, you know, change it for anything else. I think my main motivation is honestly pure passion. I love the rewarding feeling when someone looks at my design or my new pieces and they're in love with it and they want to buy it and they want to gift it to someone else. It just gives me a very strong feeling of satisfaction. It makes me feel like I've achieved something. I've always been passionate about design ever since I was a kid. Not even just jewelry design, but even fashion designing and styling, putting clothes together. So I feel like I'm very much invested in this side of womanhood, you know, making women look beautiful, adding a beautiful touch to their outfit, making sure that they have a piece that will last for a long time. It tells a story. And when I get this positive feedback from someone else commenting on my pieces, it's the best feeling. I wouldn't even say money because I think this comes first, even before money.
Yes. When you get their interest, when they are basically a part of your process.
They're partners, basically. Exactly.
Then the money can come after.
Exactly.
So now, what are your future plans for NK Jewelry, this lovely business that you have? Where do you see yourself heading with it as the owner, as the founder, as the designer, and it within itself?
So I see NK Jewelry as a huge business that bring women together, that celebrate women, that make women look beautiful, fashionable. That's my first and main core concept behind NK Jewelry. Also, my plans for NK next year is to definitely expand to an international market, to introduce the Sudanese heritage of jewelry, the African heritage of jewelry in general, to the world, to make people fall in love with our pieces, to reflect that in Sudan, we have such a rich culture of not just jewelry, but fashion in general, and to make people intrigued and interested to get to know more.
So you'll be putting Sudan on the market, essentially, in that
Yes,
essence.
inshallah.
Inshallah. I really hope you do. I feel like this is the right time to educate the people and also to get them look beautiful at the same time. So what is your advice for other Sudanese women who are wanting to set up a business in Egypt or abroad after having to relocate from war-torn areas in Sudan? They're starting fresh. What can they do?
Honestly, my first solid and only advice for someone who's just starting is to just go for it. Honestly, to just, if you have a concept, if you're passionate about something, if you think you have a business idea that is profitable and can make you money and achieve success, even if it's 10 years later, 15, 20 years later, just go for it now. Because you're going to look back, if it's been a year, you're going to look back and think that if I had started this business last year, it would have been in a different place this year. Not even talking a different place as in making, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars or millions of dollars from the first year, or even though it could, you never know. But I'm talking about building a network, making some money, attracting your niche market, learning things for yourself, which is very important because investing in yourself when it comes to business is the number one thing that will keep it going. If you don't know the boring stuff, as you said earlier, and if you're not willing to put your time and effort into it, it's never going to happen. Things don't just happen overnight. And to also be resilient. Honestly, this is something that I had learned throughout the years, to be strong, resilient, and to go for the thing that you want to, even if people are putting you down.
So basically building it step by step, investing in yourself, I think is very important. And you said that very, very clearly. And would you recommend them to start in a specific line of work? Because we see that a lot of Sudanese people generally, they just want that overnight success. I think it comes from the trade background, especially in Khartoum state. Everyone just wants to make money instantly. What kind of patience do they have to develop?
Oh, a lot of patience. You really have to have a lot of patience, and you have to also be novel with your ideas. You can't copy someone else's idea and expect it to succeed, you know? I feel like after the conflict in Sudan, people who have moved to Cairo and even the UAE, a lot of them have been following the same businesses, which is not a bad thing because I'm pretty sure they're making money or otherwise they wouldn't be continuing with their business. But there's always more value in creating something that is different to whatever other people are offering on the market or on the table. For example, now, I know that there's a lot of Sudanese women who are in the jewelry business, and I love a lot of their work. And I think they're doing amazing. But what I always try to do is I try to make my pieces unique. The way I introduce them to the market, to the people, to my niche market, it has to be different and unique. I cannot follow other people and expect success. Basically,
there's plenty of room for everyone to come up with their own idea, or
exactly
find like a competitor and then decide to go a different direction.
And don't be scared, because I feel like if you're following other people's ideas, it's because you're scared of making a step that is so different from what other people are doing. But if you don't make that step, you will never actually know what the result could be.
That difference could actually set you apart, and that's what matters.
Exactly, 100%.
So what is your message, or what message do you have for Sudanese women, for Sudanese girls, during these enduring times? What is something that you want to leave them with?
I think the most important thing is to just find your peace. Take care of your mental health, because everything else follows. And I say this all the time to my friends, even if I were to be on, another podcast or anything else, I say this all the time. Make sure you take care of your mental health. Get professional help if you feel like you need it. Talk to people, create a network around yourself. Don't isolate yourself from everybody. And because it's only been a year and a half since the war broke off. And we're not okay.
Yes.
A lot of people are still struggling very much. Even if you're okay, you're better than other people, but you're still not 100% there. So make sure you take care of your mental health. Make sure you have a plan, because if you don't have a plan, things will fall apart eventually. You can't just start at a random point and expect things to fall into place. You have to plan things out, write things down, take it one day at a time, journal your thoughts, talk to people, share your ideas, and protect your energy. I think this is the most important thing, to protect your energy.
And baby steps, people will start to, Sudanese women will start to really grow and find themselves, which I think this is the right time to do things.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Nawar. This was so inspiring for me, and I hope also for our listeners.
Thank you.
You have a lot of knowledge, you have a lot of experiences, and I really, really valued having you today.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed this very much, and I hope to do more of it soon.
Yes. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of قهوة بعد الظهر, or an afternoon coffee, and keep listening for more episodes.